Hey there everybody, it's Mike DiLisio, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the collector's edition box for Petrichor from designer David Churkop and publisher Mighty Boards Games. This is not going to be a traditional review in the sense that really what I'm doing is looking at how this new storage solution kind of changes things, how successful I think it is as a big box edition of a game that I already have been on record as stating that I like quite a bit. Let's head over to the table. I'll kind of show you some of the changes. We'll take a quick look through the box. Then we'll come back here and let you know what I think. Today we're talking about the Petrichor Collector's Edition, wherein all of this gets replaced by this. Let's take a look inside the box. All right, the first thing we'll notice is that the cover is slightly different. It has a little bit more going on. Same kind of motif of this raindrop, but some nice looking art there. A little bit of spot UV, which you can probably pick up on the camera there. Here we go. One of the first big things to note is that the rule book is significantly different in the sense that this is a completely integrated rule book, meaning that everything that you saw a moment ago, all three of the expansions, plus a large number of promo tiles, I believe every promo tile that they had produced up till now, are all included within this collector's edition. And one thing I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about is this rule book, because I feel like it is a pretty significant change. If you'll notice here, it shows you right off the bat that there's kind of a color coding system that they're going to be using for it. So whenever they're referring to something that was in the Flowers expansion, it's going to be in this kind of a light green. The Honeybee expansion here, the Cows expansion, and then all of the promos that I mentioned are going to be delineated by this kind of light blue color. All right. So this is something that I will just kind of cut to the chase. This is a huge improvement to me, and I really feel like it's a clever way to kind of incorporate a collector's edition where you're going to have multiple different expansions that are modular in nature, meaning that you can play the game with one, two, or all three of the expansions. You can add in promos or not add in promos, and there are a number of different ways they could have approached this. They could have had just basically all of the rule books included, and you kind of figure out how they all go in. But I think this is a much better way to handle it, in that you've got separate spots for all of the different components. That is a huge deal, because oftentimes I find myself going nuts in these big collector's editions going, all right, well, which part is this from? Is this from this expansion? Is it part of the base game? Is it a promo? This gives you a clear list of everything that is part of whatever specific part. So all the promos are here. All of the components for the Cows expansion specifically are there. And that's something that I really do appreciate. And again, looking through this, for the setup, it's going to tell you specifically what is for what expansion and what is for just the base game. This reminds me a little bit, if you are familiar with Queen game rule books, that is something that I've always appreciated about their rule books, is kind of their layout, their design, their color coding. This reminds me a bit of that, and it works for me. Now that, somewhat is going to be subjective. Rule books, some people like rule books that are, more almost war gamer, where they've got, almost checkpoints. I like rule books like this that kind of have color coding, excuse me. This works for me. So I'm just going to flip through this a little bit, and you can get an idea of how it plays out through the whole book. Again, when they're talking about the different phases of the game, if it's in white, that is just the core rules of the game. If you're incorporating the different expansions, it's all color coded. All right, I think you can kind of see how that works. All right, game board here. Another big difference that you'll see is that this has a storage system. This is a game tray storage system. This is not something that was in the base game. I feel like in this particular case, it's done quite well. You can kind of see how everything kind of slots in nicely. Now, I'm going to talk in a moment when I get into kind of the review section of this, how there's a couple of things I wish they had done differently, but I'm just going to show you me knocking pieces all over the table. But look at that, still looks pretty. All right, one of the things I want to point out is that a couple of changes component-wise. One of the big ones are these kind of thundercloud markers. These are a nice acrylic. In the base game, they were cardboard, all right? And the other big difference I'm going to show you is in the clouds, all right? These were the base game clouds. They were kind of these cardboard constructs, and you can stick the Thundercloud token on there. I always thought these were kind of cute. I liked these a lot. However, I do feel like this version, this collector's edition, is an upgrade. I'm going to show you that. All right, so these are the player pieces here in all the different colors. None of this, other than the actual storage, is different than you got in the base game. So all of these really neat kind of glass beads, this is what you got in the original base game too. So that's not an upgrade. That was just always, I thought, a nice component. But here now you've got player specific trays, and here you've got the new kind of fancy collector's edition clouds. All right, so let me show you one of those. What's nice about these is that they've got a little stand, and now they actually hover above the game board. So in the original game, again, you had these, and they would lay on the tiles, because this is a tile-based game where you'd have your game board made up of a number of these tiles based on player count, and normally these would just kind of go on those tiles. It worked just fine, nothing wrong with it, but in this game, it kind of reinforces in this version of the game, it kind of reinforces the idea that this is a cloud. It's got a little stand, and you place those glass beads in there that represent your raindrops. All right? Some more little tiles and tokens that you can see there. Down here at the bottom, you've got kind of all of your cards and the different tiles. The cards slot underneath the tiles here. You've also got some extra space. These are the base game tiles here, some more cards. You've got some nice kind of wooden chunky bits. These are actually promo pieces here. All right, and they came with these little stickers that you go ahead and put on there. Got some more cards and tokens. You get the idea here. I was going to show you really quickly here we go. Here's the cows. Got a couple of these, again with some stickers that you add on there. All right. So that's the general idea of how this is set up. There's also a nice little board here that's part of the cows expansion, the climate board, all right? And it just kind of fits along the side there. All right, now you've kind of seen how everything is laid out in here. Let's head over and I'll kind of give you my overall impressions of this collector's edition of Petrichor. All right, so as I said a moment ago, this isn't going to be kind of a traditional review, and as such, I'm not going to be structuring it as I normally would a review. I'm going to come right on out at the front and tell you that I think that this is an excellent edition of this game. I'm giving it an 8.5 and a seal of excellence, and let me tell you kind of what things I use to assess this game. First thing I want to talk about are the component changes. What is different about this edition of the game versus the regular edition of the game and the regular editions of the expansions? And there are not a lot of differences. The big difference are the things that I kind of pointed out to you at the beginning, which are those clouds. The clouds, I think, just are a better edition of it. I never had an issue with the original cardboard clouds. I thought they had kind of their own charm and appeal, but I do feel like these are better, mostly again because they had that 3D element of the game where they're above the board, and I just feel like in a game where you are playing as clouds, it's nice to be elevated above the game space. Is it necessary? No, but is it an improvement? In my mind, it absolutely is an improvement. Not even as much the material change of going from cardboard to plastic. I don't have an issue with cardboard, but I do think that having it in that raised manner not only helps you see the beautiful art on those tiles better, but it adds again to the kind of immersion into this theme, which is a huge plus to this game for me. I've always thought that the theme of Petrichor was one of the things about it that made it stand out from other games that kind of have this tile as a board feel, the area control type of a thing. I always felt like the theme is one of the things that made Petrichor stand out. These new clouds help immerse in that theme. The promo tiles are a bonus too. Having all of these promos included in this collector's edition is fantastic. I mean, in a game like this, which is so modular in nature, much of the replay value, much of the variety is going to come in which tiles you happen to play with. And my goodness, are there a large number of different tiles now that you can put into the game to really tailor the experience. Some of them are going to be more kind of aggressive in nature and lead to more of that kind of area control-y, fighty type of a thing. And so again, you can tailor the game to your group's play styles, your preferences, and having this many tiles is just, again, the replay value is super, super high. The other thing that I look at in this edition of the game that is clearly a huge improvement to me, and you know this because I spent a lot of time talking about it, is the rule book. And why am I spending so much time talking about rule books? Because I don't think enough people are spending enough time talking about rule books. I think it is, in many ways, it's your first introduction to a game. If you have not watched a video, if you have not read the things online, your rule book is your entryway to this game. And while I think that the original rule books in Petrichor and in the expansions were all better than average, they're quite good, having this consolidated rule book and the way that it is organized, the color coding, is just stellar to me. Now, a couple of little things. There were a couple of small errors in there. There was something in the setup, I believe, for the solo game that they have the wrong number of tiles there. It's correct in the illustrated example, but the number they put is wrong. There's some small things in there that it would have been nice if they had caught. Maybe a couple of quality control issues. But overall, I think that this rule book is stellar, and it's a great way to, again, approach a game like this where you've got multiple expansions, multiple promo tiles, just a fantastic job overall, and I can't speak highly enough of it. The other kind of issue that I'm going to be looking at, or metric that I'm going to be looking at to assess this, is in how is this game as a storage solution? Because one of the things that is the hallmark of this is that this is now all in one. I showed you that you're replacing 4 boxes with 1 box, all right? And there's some positives and negatives there. A couple of the negatives is that, generally speaking, you're not really saving space. You're not really saving shelf space because it's kind of a wash there. If you were to lay all of these on a shelf, you're going to have about the same amount of space that you are taking up volume-wise with the collector's edition as you are with the original edition. So it's not a space saver. The other negative is that I would have liked a better illustrated example of where everything goes and how it's laid out. The approach they took is one where you have options, and there's no one right way to put everything, especially in that lower part of the insert. And I get that, and there's a certain appeal to that, I suppose, but I also, if I'm being honest, like having one particular way that things are supposed to go, and I know this is where this goes, and it fits in there nicely. There's a sense of satisfaction about that. On the side of the boxes, there are some illustrated examples, kind of like a collapsed and an uncollapsed version of where things go. And that's good. Trust me, if that wasn't there, it would be a huge issue. But I would have liked even more. I would have liked like an illustrated sheet. There's been a number of these types of games that come with a sheet to show you exactly where everything goes. And this doesn't quite take that extra step. That would have been nice. On the positive side, for this as a storage solution, it is much better, quicker with setup and teardown now. Those individual player trays, fantastic. It's really, really great. You can just hand those out to whoever's in the game. They've got all the stuff that they need to get started. The game trays themselves work very well. You just pop those out, and now all of the tiles that you might need are all the tokens, I should say, that you might need are ready to go. Well done there. So overall, I think it works well as a storage solution. You're not necessarily saving space, but you are saving time with setup and teardown. So as a storage solution, more good than bad. And so overall, as I mentioned, this is an 8.5 for me, a seal of excellence. Petrichor was a game that I already had a great amount of esteem for. It's a game that I feel like has been one of those kind of under the radar type of games that I have really enjoyed exposing to people over the years, teaching them this game, and you know, more times than not it has gone over quite well. And so I do feel like it's a game that has potentially wide appeal if more people get a chance to play it, and maybe this edition will be a way for more people to get a chance to play the game. I feel like this is a really good way to present this game, both through a much better integrated rule book, one of the best integrated rule books I've ever seen, and some really nice component upgrades as well. Take on top of that a good storage solution, and you've got a really, really solid package for me. That is Petrichor, the Collector's Edition. All right, well, that's it for me. This is Mike DiLisio signing off from Dice Tower headquarters.